It's
Hello and welcome to ULPLM.
Universal Light Pure Love Ministries.
TM. I had to have the last word on that one. Anyway, welcome tonight or this morning or anytime, wherever it is, whatever time it is, wherever you are. Welcome. Please share this if you can. Today we have a very special guest. Of course, we always have special guests, right?
That's right.
Everyone is a special guest because you are. No, but she really is. And she really caught my attention the other night with one of her live shows and talking about just her own personal spirituality and her experience. And I was very impressed.
Yes.
So welcome, Stari, Ari, Ruiz. Ruiz?
Yeah, Ruiz. Fine.
All right, cool. Ruiz.
Hello and welcome.
Hello.
So, Stari, Ari, would you like to just talk about a little bit about, what brought you into your spirituality, kind of your background?
Well,
The short, the long and short.
okay, so I've always, since I was a kid, had like visions, and I was, kind of like a early seer of things that not a lot of people could see. Both me and my sister have a gift or gifts. This comes from our own background, from our family. I actually know that it's definitely from my grandmother's side, or from my mother's side of the family, but I don't have much information about my dad's. Only that a lot of shamans have my same last name, Ruiz, that are Toltec shamans. It's so funny because when I was looking at that, I was asking one of my guides, I was like, I have no clue about, my dad's side, because he never met his parents. They died at an early age. He was only like about a few, I guess he said he was like 3 years old and when they passed away. And so he doesn't remember them. And so I asked my guides and they're just like, oh, just Google shamans, Toltec shamans. And I was just like, okay. And so I Googled it and sure enough, I was like, all of these people have my last name. So I was just like, maybe that's a relation or something down the line, and I was just like, wow.
Yeah, that runs in the family. That's how, similar to my family, different background, but I came from a long line of psychics and intuitives and astrologer readers, and just always kind of had that. And that's kind of what I think what resonated when I was watching you is you have that same kind of, you're on the same frequency or similar frequency as I am. Mm-hmm. And I really understood pretty much every word you said and agreed with pretty much every word you said. And I don't usually do that. I've usually got something, to the contrary to say about it. And I feel like you're flowing pretty good. And I see that you have, people that you've got watching you. And I think that that's very important because I think your voice needs to be heard among the masses and reach as many people as possible, because I feel like what you share really resonates a good positive vibration. So, yeah. So your background, so basically you were, at a young age, you were kind of, you always used it, or did you ever kind of run from it?
I ran from it when I was told stories about it, like I said, my mom's, I was always with my mother and her family and everything like that. My grandmother was an herbologist. She used herbs to cure us, everything that we had. She would just use yerba buena, which is spearmint in Mexico. In Mexican tradition, we use spearmint for tummy aches, ear aches, stuff like that, because what it is, it actually removes or clears away any bacteria. And so she used to do this all the time, and then she would, it is so funny because my aunts used to make fun of her own daughters, because she had marijuana. It was actually, it looked like marijuana leaves, but it wasn't marijuana. It was, what is it called? Hemp. And so she had it in oil, and so she would use that as for her skin and all that stuff. And so I was just I would always ask her Grandma, how'd you know all this stuff, and then she would always just be like, oh, I was told how to use this by my mom, and all that stuff. And so then later down the line, when I started, exploring my spiritual background and stuff like that, meaning asking my mom questions, she had told me that our family has curanderos, which is, healers, and so she said when she was 6 years old, she experienced that, from her uncle and aunt back in Mexico when she had chicken pox. And she had to be healed for 3 days and 3 nights. And so I was just like, when I was a kid, you were telling me, don't talk to spirits, don't do this, don't do that. She scared me. Like, because I told her, because we used to live right behind a cemetery in Compton, California. And I used to tell her that I saw them, walking through the house and stuff like that. And she's just like, don't talk to them. That's evil, or, just whatever. And so me and my sister wouldn't say anything anymore to her. We would just talk to my great aunt that used to live there too. And she used to see them too. She never scared us about it. She just said, if you are afraid of them, just ignore them, not ready for that yet or whatever.
Right.
And so my sister was different. She could hear them. Like, I could see them, but she could hear them. So we had the same room. And so she would be like, Ari, they're talking to me again. And then I'll like wake up and I'll see somebody right there. And I'll be like, yeah, they're here. And then she'll be like, what do they want? Like, I don't know. Tell them to just go away. And I'm like, you could do that too. Like, she would always have me like push me outside my room, our room, to go check. Like, it was always that way. She would hear footsteps. She would hear, all that stuff. And she was just like, there's somebody out there. There's somebody out there, all this stuff. And so, yeah, so as a kid growing up, it was a fear. Like, it was like I guess you could say a programming
Right.
from my, the adults in my life, that they're just like, oh, you shouldn't, it was bad or whatever. So as a kid, it started fading when I was like 13 years old. That's when I was just completely done. Nothing, only feeling like that I was being watched. That's the only thing that I had for a very long time until my early 20s. And this is when I was in the military. I had, before I had my daughter, in my early 20s, it was just very stressful situations that were going on. And so I had a friend, and she's a Buddhist, and she told me, oh, why don't you try meditation? That'll help you connect, or alleviate stress too. So I started, listening to her, and I'm like, okay, so I'll do this. And then all of a sudden I started Googling more stuff, thank goodness for the internet.
Right.
And I started exploring, like, it's kind of like you get this trigger to go into it more, right? It's like you're going, like Alice going down the rabbit hole. You're just like, oh, what is this? What is this? And so I started meditating more. I even started learning about ascended masters, the angelic realm, and then, of course, the fourth dimension of creation and all the other dimensions and stuff like that, because it actually resonated and it made me feel like I know this already. It's just, I just didn't know what it was called,
Yeah.
And for a very long time, I read a lot of books, especially on shamanism. And I explored a lot of that detail because of the visitors that I had as a kid. And so it's just like, what does this even mean, right? And so after I started exploring even more, I was like, oh, that makes so much sense as to why, because there's a connection to that,
Right.
realm of healing modality, and it's just definitely something that I wanted to do. And for a very long time, like, I didn't know about how energy worked, because I would feel it right away, like empathy for people. I could feel their energy. I could feel their emotions. And so I was
I know the feeling.
kind of like a sponge, and so I didn't know how to shield. I didn't know any of that stuff. And so finally, I think it was like when I was about 23 years old, that's when I was starting like, you know what, this is not okay. Like, I feel like when somebody's in a bad mood, then that makes me like that, and stuff like that. So I had to find something to like alleviate that. And so I found a lady that was a psychic, and she read tarot, and she told me, you're a healer. And I'm like, oh, okay. You're like, okay. And so I was just like, cool, what does that even mean? You know?
Yeah.
And I was
Right.
like, you have a lot of healers. You have a lot of healers in your family. And I'm like, well, I thought about it. I was like, oh, well, yeah, my grandma, you know, all of those people. And I was just like, well, that makes sense, you know? And then she's just like, you need to start looking into that. You need to start working with it. And so I began with I didn't know where to start. I just started scanning myself. You know, I just started scanning my energy, just going like this, you know, and then I would feel something like stab me in the hand or like hear like a pain or throbbing, moving. And I'll be like, what is that? You know, and then I will hear like a thought, but I didn't know if it was me or my guides, you know, and I was just like, what is that? And they're like, you need to get rid of it. I'm like, oh, you know, and so that's what I teach now for people who are barely beginning with healing, is that the same practice that I did where I scan myself, you know, and so that people could understand the differences between energies, and it is all encompassing, because normally a lot of people don't have the, I guess you could say, you know, like they don't feel like they are healers. They don't feel that they have abilities, and I tell them they do. We all do, you know, it's just a matter of time when it's going to happen. You know, it depends on your soul, you know, mission. It depends on where your soul is at right now, that you definitely have the abilities, and they're going to come, you know, whenever you're truly
playing
ready.
with those things. I truly believe just messing around with it, you know, enough. Yeah. Some people would say, don't do that, you know, but I've always been one that's like, I'm going to mess around with it anyway, just because you told me I couldn't. Yeah. So now I'm going to go see what this is all about. And you realize, you know, in your spiritual travels or journeys, you start, I mean, at least I do, I started to see, wow, a lot of the stuff that I was afraid of, I really didn't need to be.
Right.
And you become a giant in those realms because you're not afraid, you know, but there is a trial by fire, or so to speak, that you have to go through. Oh, yeah. But you have to mess with things. Be willing to break through certain thresholds, right?
And you know, I don't have the, I guess you could say, the scary stuff, you know, like, because for me, when I was a kid, I wasn't afraid of it, you know. It's more or less like I kind of get cautious. Like, I'm just like, what is this, you know? Because I question it. And that's, you know, my method. And a lot of people are more like, oh my God, you know, because they don't know what's going on, or they don't know what that energy is. And it's just like, question it. Yeah. Ask it, what do you want, you know, or who are you, you know, and stuff like that, because I was told, don't talk to it, you know. And so that's what I do. What do you want?
I mean, really, basically, you don't have to allow it into your life.
Exactly.
If it doesn't resonate. And you know, a lot of people are going through this and need, and especially during the awakening, or as you are awakening, whatever time of life that is for you, that, you know, I feel like you go through certain things as you kind of break through certain thresholds. It's all about fear of the unknown, though. And really, like you were saying, you know, it's really nothing to be afraid of, especially from like a child's point of view. Most of the time, they're not afraid to talk to any of them. No. They will say, you know, this one kind of feels a little weird, but they don't really say, I'm running from this. You know, I can't, you know, most of them, until they're taught to be afraid of ghosts or spirits, or, you know.
Exactly. And you know, and it's programming from, you know, day one, pretty much. It really does depend on the adults in your life. And of course, even Hollywood movies, that whole, like, you have to be afraid, they could control you, they could possess you. It's like, no, you allow that into yourself. Yes. You know, possession happens because you open that, and you're like, okay, you know.
Exactly. Yes. And I know that can be hard for some people to accept, but that is exactly it. Somewhere within you, you said, well, okay.
Yes, exactly. And that's an experience in itself as well, for growth purposes. You know, everything that we experience is for growth. And so that's what I believe. And I know a lot of people are just like, oh, that's scary, you know, to experience something like that. Some people told me because I do readings as well. Some people say, I wish I was clairvoyant, but I don't want to see the scary stuff. And I'm just like, you gotta see all of it. Like,
Yep. It's the all, right? It's everything. It's if you don't experience one part of it or see one part of it and understand it as much as you understand the other part, you're not getting the full effect of life, right? You're not getting that full flavor, that what, you know, sometimes, yes, the bad, it does teach us.
Yeah.
And yeah, so I heard also you were in the military, right?
Oh yeah, and that taught me a lot. It really did. Like the thing with that military, it was the show of both polarities in one, you know. And so I was polarized to be very when I barely began, to be very, like, I guess you could say love and light only. I didn't want conflict, blah 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 blah, and all this stuff. And so the first 2 years in the military, it was really rough for me. And so then finally, again, like I said, I met my friend, you know, she's a Buddhist, and she was just like, you know, everything happens for a reason. Energy is energy, you know, and in Buddhism, you know, they're taught to accept all creation, you know, like not one thing more than another, you know, it's balance. And so when I was doing that, I accepted my darkness. I accepted other people's darknesses. You know, whatever was happening outside of me with my conflict with other people was teaching me about that, about my neglect of my own, you know, conflict within, you know, my neglect of healing that. And so that definitely showed me that. And of course, daily, of course, until recently, and even more so a daily thing, it's a healing process. It's not just, I healed it and I'm done.
Right.
Or like your soul is so complex. Your energy is so complex. There's layers to you. It's never like, as long as we're here, we're learning and we're healing ourselves, you know, and we're healing other people at the same time. And so it's definitely a journey. We are in the ascension process, you know, and so I have guides that tell me this all the time. It's like, you guys think that the ascension is like far off. No, it's right now. You know, it's
You're in it. Yes. We were born into it.
Exactly. And so they're just like, you're just remembering. That's what it is. You're just remembering it. And you're remembering yourself, of course, as a soul. And so in the military, I saw that polarity play out. And then when I became an actual, you know, leader with leading men and women, it was just like, holy, you know, like I was like a reluctant one.
That's an interesting challenge, isn't it?
It is, because I'm just like, okay, first of all, I'm a single mom. I can barely take care of myself and my kid. You know, like that's how my mentality was. Because you get get chances to actually test for you know, staff sergeant, which is, you know, an E5. You get chances to test. And the first time I tested, I studied for it and all that stuff, but I was wishing, oh, well, I'm not ready, you know, maybe I shouldn't, you know. I was like this, you know. And so finally I was just like, okay, I didn't make it. But the second time I was like thinking, well, you know what, if I don't get out of here, because I was in California stationed there, if I don't get out of here, if I don't go overseas, then I'm not re-enlisting. And sure enough, the same darn day that I was done testing, my supervisor calls me. She's like, hey, guess what? You got a change of assignment. You're going to South Korea. And I'm like, and I look up, Jesus? You think you? And so I was like, geez, okay, fine.
That's how I was, you know, I was talking about that today with Norma. That's what keeps my faith in a higher power and a higher source, because it seems like things that, you know, tight spots that we're in, or things that we, you know, kind of we want, and they just immediately come. Some of them, most of them, you know, or the ones that really are memorable, you know, and those things are memorable and really kind of restore your faith. You know, no, like right now, you're bringing up things that I wanted to talk to you about. Like you're answering questions that I haven't even asked you yet. Yeah. So you're doing great. So ladies and gentlemen who are watching, yes, she's very, very intuitive and psychic. Okay. And also Jessica Tull says, love you, hun. Don't forget to mention your soaps. They're amazing.
Oh, yeah, Jessica. I make soaps. I try to be very vegan friendly when I do make soaps, but I'm not a vegan. I love everybody who is, and I actually respect anybody's choice, because they respect the body and they know what their body needs. So that's got to say about that, because I know this whole debate about in spirituality.
Another question answered. Well, it's like
yeah.
Where
I'll just let you just keep talking. You're just answering it all, and you're doing well. So keep on going.
It's a debate whether or not you're spiritual enough if you're not vegan, right? And
right.
I'm just you cannot do that to people. You cannot make them feel guilty about what they're listening to their body and how their body reacts to things, and food especially. You know, you can't do that.
Yeah.
That's hitting them, you know, and their own journey. And it's another form of control, another form of shaming, you know. And so that's why I believe that everybody has a choice, okay? If you wish to do drugs, then that's your choice. You know, if you wish to be vegan, that's your choice. If you wish to eat meat, that's your choice. It is your journey to live, you know. And so as long as it's like not affecting somebody in a negative way, you know, of course.
Yeah.
Right.
So it is definitely something that I've always seen as a big like debate in the spiritual community, and I just don't think it's okay for anybody to dictate whether or not somebody should
shame somebody else for something that yes, it's I see it too. It's all over, and it's really, and I was going to say earlier, I wanted to give you a compliment. Another one. I'm sorry. You're a breath of fresh air.
You really are.
Because we don't get to talk to a lot of people that are really on the same wavelength, and you really are. And I love it. And I just wanted to say, you know, you were talking about becoming a leader, and that's the thing. Most good leaders don't even realize they are leaders. They don't even claim to be leaders. They just go in and they do their work, and they do their job, and they do what needs to be done. And hopefully everybody else does it the same way, you know, and that's what you are. You're very humble. You're very centered. And that's, I think, what we need in the spiritual community is really coming from a place of just, you know, hey, we're going to be us. We're humans. You know, that's okay. It's okay to go have a party with your buddies or your, you know, or your girlfriends. It's okay. You know, as long as you're not, and if you want to hurt yourself and continue to do it over and over, you know, every day, that's up to you. That's your choice. You know, as long as it's not, it's not hurting others and affecting others, you know, but there's a cause and effect to that will come back to get you. You know, it's just like eating meat. You know, I love meat. I'm sorry, I do. I'm not a vegetarian. I love steak. I love surf and turf. But I know that I need to stop eating so much of it and eat more of like fruits and vegetables just for my own. You know, I get indigestion and because I eat all that stuff. And I know some of it's just, you overdo it. And it's really, I'm trying to maintain more of a balance, you know, and get more in shape over it. Because I'm seriously out of shape.
Balancing and living body, you know, that's a thing that a lot of, and I know this for a fact that I had a friend that, you know, was like, oh, I'm going to be a vegan. And I was like, okay, that's cool. You know, and this was in the military. So it was pretty, you know, I was observing her and I would help her out, you know, like with, cause she told me that she needed somebody to like motivate her. And I was just like, well, you know, I eat meat. So it's just kind of like, you know, like, if you want some of my meat or something, like, she's just like, yeah, tell me no. And I'm like, all right. So she did it for a month and she lost a lot of weight, but it was unhealthy, you know, for her because of her frame. She's a little bit big boned, so she has a lot of muscle. And so a lot of the muscle was, you know, actually, you know, like she was weakened. And so I told her, I was like, you need supplementing, you know, you need vitamins to supplement. And so if you're going to maintain this lifestyle, you need vitamins, you know? And so she did start it, but she just couldn't after a month. She's just like, I feel like crap, you know, like, and so she slowly started incorporating meat, you know, and she just stuck with lean meats. She didn't really like, you know, do all that stuff, but she knows now that, you know, we're older and wiser, she knows now that to listen to her body. It's not about the trend, you know, it's not about the guilt, you know, it's about being in shamanism, for example, you pray over, you know, you thank the nature spirits, you know, you thank the you know, the deer that you're gonna hunt, you thank, you know, that, you know, and so it's just kind of like go back to that. I used to tell her, like, go back and thank, you know, the, you know, cow that sacrificed itself, or, you know, our, for, to be nourished, you know. And so, and she does that too. She's like, it's so funny because she lives in Texas, and so she farms and everything like that. And so now she, like, when she goes hunting, she does it too, like a ceremony, and it's pretty cool. And so, and I tell people, it's like, if you feel guilty about eating meat, but you know for a fact that it is very hard for you to stop, then pray over the meat and thank the nature spirit for the sacrifice.
Right.
You know, and understand that God, you know, provides us with everything, and therefore we shouldn't feel guilty for being us.
Right. Right. Exactly. I feel the exact same way. And that's just it. As long as you're being grateful to whatever it is you're utilizing in the world, even, you know, because it all came from nature at some point, right? As long as you are grateful and understand it came from somewhere.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, you know, it just, I think that's the part we need to really remember when eating. And yes, listening to our body and eating what our body craves. I personally, if I go straight fruit and vegetable, and the way that I eat, it doesn't quite work for me. You know, I get very skeletorish, very, you know. So I
a lot of
And so can you go through, like, you offer healings, correct?
Yes,
let's talk about a little. Yeah.
Well, like I said, I did my own self-healing for a long time. But I did begin to give services, like, to my friends and family, like tarot and card readings and stuff like that. And then healing, of course, like with my sister specifically because she has asthma. But I told her, it's like, if you're able to control it, you know, you're able to do that as long as you yourself understand and want, you know, it to be healed, you know. And so I do services like scans and, you know, removal of, like, lower vibrational energy, meaning, like, any type of imprints that the person had from childhood, that the higher self, you know, I actually consult with the higher self before removing anything from that person, because we actually have the higher self remove it. You know, I'm just facilitating. So it's like a dual thing. Before removal, look at the imprint and ask, is this something this person's already dealt with? And is it something that could be removed? And they're just like, they always say yes, of course, but sometimes we get a no, you know, and sometimes we're just like, hey, and I have to tell the person, like, hey, at this time, you know, I could alleviate it. I could, you know, rearrange it, but you need to deal with this, you know, it's healed from within you. And usually that helps them take control and power over their own healing, you know. And so that's definitely a tactic that the higher self wants them to do, you know, something that they could understand that they have control and power over healing for themselves, and they don't have to permanently come to me, you know, for that or whatever. So, you know, and I do, you know, like I do remove lower vibrational beings as well within the luminous body, which is the aura. And then, of course, in the energy vortexes, which are the chakras, I remove any type of, like, darkened energy or anything that's clogging, you know. And so that is pretty much an alignment, you know. And so there's definitely, and of course, when you do an auric sweep or a luminous body sweep, you see if there's anything around. A lurker, that's what I call them, is like vibrational beings, usually around, you know, people that have, you know, light. That's what they feed off of. And so sometimes it is definitely a lesson for that person too, to understand that they have power over that too, where there's a lower vibrational being that shows up. Are you gonna cry and be scared, or are you gonna be like, you can't come into my domain, you know, this is my domain. So it's kind of like they're taking back their power. And so I discuss this in length with people, especially those who I actually do this privately with, where I ask them, I'm like, do you have a fear of seeing something scary, and they're just like, oh yeah, all the time, you know. And so I'm just like, this is something that needs to be healed. This is an imprint from probably your childhood, you know, or a past life that cycled into the childhood, you know, and stuff like that. And I tell them, I was like, because, you know, I did find a lurker or a, you know, lower vibrational being in your field or around your field, and it definitely, your higher self is saying there's something that you need to start working on, you know. And it's kind of like a self-empowerment type of thing. Right. And so that's the type of healings that I conduct. It's more or less facilitation and understanding that there's always going to be a root cause to anything that's going on with us. You know, anything, especially in the physical body, because the root causes starts in the, you know, spirit body first, and then it manifests because it festers and it's not, you know, healed. It manifests in our physical body. To understand it is to seek understanding of the self, you know, where I'll give you guys an example. When, you know, I had injuries in the military, and I used to tell myself, why, you know, like, why did I do this? Or why did I do that? And then the injuries, like right off the bat, it's like, because you're trying to prove a point. You're trying to make people know that you're strong, you know, when you already are, you know, and so that's how it manifests. And I'm like, oh, you know, that is so true. You know, and so, because it's like, it's a boys club, you know, and so it's like, you have women coming in and some of the boys are just like, oh, you're so weak, or, you know, just very psychological, you know, and then it gets emotional. And so I was just like, I'm going to prove you wrong, you know, like, that I was. And sure enough, I proved them wrong, but I ended up injuring myself. And so it's just like, that is so selfish, and that is so egotistic of me, that I, you know, like, I sacrifice my own physical health to prove them wrong, you know, and just and so that's
a guy.
Yeah,
that's usually what guys do.
I do it too.
That's what guys do.
But this is great. So healing, when you're healing, you're basically visiting the ether, right? You're connecting to the other dimensions, visiting them. That's awesome. See, that's basically how I do it as well. And you're connecting with them. And you've got a lot of great comments in here. Do you want to take some questions?
Oh yeah, sure.
All right. So let's see, or at least just some comments.
Yes, fasting. I actually do periodic fasting, by the way. I usually do it like the longer fastings that I do are usually around like winter time, where I have to reset my energy, and of course like Easter time. I usually do it around that time, and it's my guide. I call in, because Jesus is one of my guides. I call him in, and I'm like, you really want me to fast? And he's just like, yeah. Like, yeah, you should, you know, and then I'm just like, all right, I'll do it. And then it's not a full on like no food whatsoever else. I start slow, where I just start liquids at first, and then just water, and then all of a sudden nothing. And then that kind of lasts for like a week. And then after that, I incorporate it slowly again. I water, and then liquids, and then vegetables, and then meat if I need it, you know. And so that's what I do. And yes, it does help heal. It really does, because a lot of people have, I think I've read articles on a lot of cancer patients going to the Amazon, seeking out, you know, the shamans out there, and the shamans make them fast, you know, and then they do the healings for them and stuff like that. Even with and then, of course, they do like a certain type of diet, depending again on the person, and of course the healing necessary for it. And so yes, I do recommend that. But again, take your time, moderation. It doesn't have to be a 45 thing.
Right.
That's exactly right. Let's see here. See what we've got here.
Nancy Finn says, I had a healing from Stari. She's amazing. We were apart in different states, and I felt everything. I highly recommend. Thank you, Nancy.
So where can someone find you if they're new to this and haven't received a healing from you yet?
Oh, yeah.
Do you have a place they can go?
They they could go to my business page, Stari Ari Healings and Readings, and or my website, Stari Ari 333 healingsandreadings.com. That's where I have like all of the everything that I do, readings or healings, and I have my soap there if somebody wants. And of course, I'm gonna have to check it out. Every Wednesday, I actually do this, live where I do take some, I'll give a card to somebody or a healing, scan. And I do have expedited requests, which are like about $11 or $22, and it's just like whoever gets the expedited, is usually scans that people want, which is great because then I help them understand their energy better as well. Not a lot of people nowadays, I'm not saying this is somebody that, is out there that watches me or anything like that, but more like what I've noticed in the past when I started doing healing, people were just more or less just wanted the experience. And that's perfectly fine. That's fine. But I'm not that type of healer. I'm just going to tell you, like, here, I'm done.
Right.
Some would say if those people are coming to you, then I guess you are.
Because I'm just like, hey, so about your healing, and I give detail and I don't. Would you
say they're basically wanting to know? They're wanting to learn from you, right? So maybe you ought to think about that. I do some of that, and I didn't try to do that. That's just I ended up being more of like a mentor and doing mentor readings. Mm-hmm. Not all of them, but yeah, I did. I just ended up accepting it. So maybe that's what you're supposed to do. Maybe who knows?
And that's. To me, that I think that's way more valuable than just like, here's a card.
Right. And it is. Teach them how to do it, and it's a lot. Yeah, and they can do it themselves.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's what's important.
Exactly, and I more or less connect with their guides or higher self, and I welcome them in and say, what do you need to tell this person? And that's what I do on the live as well, where I'm just like, all right, let's call in your higher self to see what she or he wants you to know, and I'm just like, oh, okay. And just all this information. Some people's higher selves are more like, than others, but it's always fun to see them because it's just like, oh, wow, and then I'll pull a card and it it's kind of similar to what the higher self said, and it's just like, all right.
Yeah, you have a lot of fans in here, so
yes, you do.
Good. Thank you all for being here. I appreciate it.
You do.
And I appreciate you being on tonight. One more time, how they can get a hold of you for a reading or a healing. And you do readings as well, right?
Yes, I do. It's Stari Ari Healings and Readings. So here on Facebook, and then for my website is www.stariari333 healingsandreadings.com. Melissa. Awesome. Hi, Melissa. She says that, I do galactic readings, and I connect with a lot of galactic beings because as a kid, I saw them. So it's like it wasn't just earthlings, earthbound spirits. Yeah. It was gray aliens, and I was just like, what the hell?
Right.
Well, thank you very much. I'd like to have you back on in maybe a month or so. I enjoyed having you on.
Oh, yes.
And I very much appreciate
this time
it.
Flew right by.
I appreciate all of you being here.
Yeah.
And thank you very much. And tomorrow this will be on YouTube, so you'll be able to I think you'll be able to download it, or I'll send it to you if you'd like.
Yep.
Oh yeah, that'll be fine. I'll just download it.
I don't know if you have a YouTube, but it's handy.
I do have a YouTube, you guys.
Cool. So find her on YouTube. What are you on Twitter too?
I do not have Twitter because
no Twitter. Instagram.
I can't deal with Twitter.
Yeah, I can't deal with it half the time either, but it's kind of fun.
It's too much.
No, it gets to be.
I do have an Instagram, but I haven't checked it in a long time.
I know, I'm just barely starting to catch up on all of them.
Yeah.
Well, thank you very much for being here, Ari. Stari Ari.
Yes, thank you.
Check her out for a healing or a reading or some of that awesome soap, right?
Yes. On my website.
Very cool. Well, you have a good night. Y'all have a great week, and we'll see you soon.
Yes, thank you. Thank you.
Thank you all. Peace out, everybody.